Here's your wrestling news for May 21st, 2023, and this week AEW Collision was officially announced, but there's been a lot of questions about what CM Punk's status for the show will be. While Punk was seemingly confirmed for Collision this time last week, the former world champion is once again at odds with AEW, and his future on TV looks uncertain. After All Out and Punk's social media drama earlier this year, the majority of the locker room was reportedly against Punk returning, and it appears that viewpoint hasn't changed. During Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer explained that a few AEW talent do not understand why the company is giving CM Punk another chance, given his comments and actions over the past 9 months. Meltzer also noted that Tony Khan tried his best to make the CM Punk situation work because of how much money there is to be made, and said that there's always the risk of Vince McMahon snatching up the controversial star. Punk has certainly made things difficult for Khan, which has left the Elite refusing to work with him, and a roster split to build a roster of wrestlers on Collision that are willing to work with him. CM Punk may indeed be the biggest name in AEW, but he has also been the most problematic, and do you think he deserves a second chance in the company? Sound off in the comments. Since All Out, CM Punk has not been featured on either Dynamite or Rampage, but his presence has also been carefully avoided on other shows. As previously reported, the Young Bucks did interviews for AEW All Access in which they discussed being suspended due to the brawl, but they were later rejected. In their place, the Bucks re-recorded the interviews and alluded to being away without ever mentioning the suspension or Punk, and this seriously hurt the show's chances. As explained on Wrestling Observer Radio, the decision to nix any mention of suspensions, the fight, or Punk was done as a legal caution, as mentioning what happened on air could have jeopardized the ongoing legal matters stemming from the backstage attack. Meltzer went on to say that the fact that what happened couldn't be discussed seriously hurt the perception of the show, as fans tuned in to see how AEW would address the brawl. After some underwhelming ratings for the show, All Access will be moving on to Max, Warner Media's latest streaming platform, but perhaps things would have been different if the Punk situation was a topic for discussion. While Punk may be one of the most controversial names in wrestling today, he isn't the only name in the industry to have drummed up controversy over the years. In 2006, Eric Bischoff's book Controversy Creates Cash hit shelves, and the former WWE Raw general manager has had his fair share of dealing with difficult wrestlers. While speaking on his Strictly Business podcast, Bischoff addressed the CM Punk situation and the breakdown of communication between the two sides over the potential rehiring of Ace Steel. Bischoff said, "Unfortunately, Tony will find a way to allow this to continue and Punk will be back, which will be a big mistake. Who the is Ace Steel anyway? Just because he's a confidant of Punk's? Why is he allowed to jeopardize the network premiere of a brand new show? Are you kidding me? People say I'm being negative when I refer to the dysfunction within the infrastructure and the business side of AEW, but this is a good example. They bring him back and they make him the focal point of an entirely new show, but he decides to wet the bed because his confidant isn't allowed at the venue. Who cares? Let Punk pay him. He's making $5 million a year or more than that. Let Punk pay him. All these hardcore wrestling fans and Punk himself is so anti-Hogan because they think he's selfish and whatnot. Punk's worse." For years, Hulk Hogan has been considered one of the most controversial figures in wrestling, as while he was popular with fans during his heyday, his tendency for backstage politicking made him widely disliked. Punk's return to TV will be a huge deal for AEW if it happens at all, and do you agree with Bischoff's comments? Let us know down below. In 2020, AEW Fight Forever was announced, and the promotion made a serious investment into their first console video game. With an 8-digit figure, at least $10 million, injected into AEW's games department, the company has, for all its success, been in financial straits for years, and that's not helped by Fight Forever's numerous delays. Now, though, we may finally be getting AEW's first console video game, as Fightful Select reports that the game is set for a June 27th release. That will put the game's launch 2 days after the Forbidden Door event, and Fightful noted that a French retailer called Just for Games has the release date as June 27th, and this doesn't appear to be a mistake. Whether the game lives up to the expectations, only time will tell, but hopefully it won't be long until fans and gamers at long last get their hands on Fight Forever. Later this month, AJ Styles will challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship, and whether he wins or loses, WWE is already teasing what's next for him. During this week's Smackdown, the Phenomenal One had a somewhat tense face-off with Grayson Waller, teasing a rekindling of their feud, but that's not WWE's only plan. As fans spotted on Smackdown, a segment with Karrion Kross and Scarlett featured a tarot card of Styles, strongly implying that this will be his next feud. It's interesting that WWE are teasing both of these angles, as should Styles win the title, it's very likely he'll be moved to Raw and away from Waller and Kross. Styles only returned to TV recently, but has already become a vital part of programming. And between Kross, Waller, or a move to Raw as champion, what do you want to see in the future of the Phenomenal One? Now, for years, John Laurinaitis was WWE's head of talent and the man who decided who'd get a job, and both signed and released a ton of talent during his time with the company. In the mid-2000s, Marty Garner, who had previously wrestled as Champagne, started a wrestling blog, and while his writings had a ton of support, Laurinaitis wasn't a fan. On the Cheap Heat Productions podcast, Garner recalled fans starting a Hire Champagne campaign online and revealed that Laurinaitis got 300 to 500 emails a day, which didn't sit well with Johnny Ace. He added, "John Laurinaitis said, 'Well, I don't ever want to see you again. If you come to a show, I'll have you arrested.' I said, 'Johnny, I'm just trying to get a job.' He goes, 'Now you're cursing at a senior official of WWE.' I said, 'Johnny, I'm not cursing at you. I'm cursing about the situation.'" Garner did not get a job back with WWE, and these days, he's perhaps best known for taking a botched pedigree from Triple H in 1996 that resulted in Champagne landing directly on the top of his head. As for Laurinaitis, his career with WWE ended due to his alleged involvement with the Vince McMahon hush money scandal, and we very much doubt he'll ever return in an ironic twist of fate for the master of future endeavors. In 2020, after a dominant run as part of the NXT brand, Shayna Baszler was called up to the main roster and quickly thrust into a Raw Women's title picture with Becky Lynch. While Baszler is yet to win a singles title on the main roster, she is a former women's tag champion and has had success despite some odd instructions by none other than Vince McMahon. During a recent interview with Ring the Bell, Baszler said that before her in-ring debut on the main roster, she was told not to use any pro wrestling moves and took this idea as a sign McMahon wanted her to rely solely on her MMA background. Wanting to make a good impression, Baszler did exactly that, and when she used MMA moves during her second match, was asked what she was thinking by going out and using no professional wrestling moves. Baszler went on to say that going from NXT to answering directly to McMahon was a bit of a transition, but she now feels that she has found her place on the main roster. Baszler and Ronda Rousey will compete for the vacant tag team titles later this month, a match that the pair are the favorites to win, and whatever offense she uses, you can imagine that Vince McMahon will have some strong feelings, one way or the other. And we're ending today with John Cena, who thanks to his Hollywood career, has not been able to appear on WWE programming as much as he or the fans would like. These days, WWE is lucky to get more than a handful of appearances by Big Match John, but this week, Cena revealed that he will be returning no matter what for one very special moment. Throughout her career, Charlotte Flair has become the most decorated woman in the history of the company and is closing in on her father's record of 16 world championships. Speaking to 92 New York, Cena vowed that if Flair can surpass her father's record, then he will be there in person to shake the Queen's hand in the ultimate sign of respect between the two. When it comes to singles gold, Charlotte is a 15-time champion, having held the Divas title once, the NXT Women's title twice, the Raw Women's title a record of 6 times, and the SmackDown Women's Championship a record 7 times. With Flair still being one of the top stars in the women's division, it seems likely that she will one day eclipse her father's record, and John Cena plans to be there in person to see the Queen reach that milestone.